Here is a math question for you. What is the probability that this lesson will be amazing? Answer: 100%. Welcome to our Probabilities series. In this series, we'll be covering the following topics: describing probabilities and the probability scale, the sum of probabilities, relative frequency and expectations, listing outcomes and sample space diagrams, and two-way tables. This series will be uploaded in 5 sections throughout the coming days. So, in order to be informed when there is a new upload, be sure to hit all on the notification bell to be alerted. So then, let's begin by defining probability. Probability is the chance of an event happening. For example, the chance of rain or the chance of sunshine. Now, it is expressed as a value from 0 to 1. So the values will be from 0 to 1. So what we're going to do now is to look at what are the key facts when we think about working with probabilities. So the first point is that probabilities can be written as a fraction, decimal, or percentage. It has to be in either of these 3 forms. Next, the probability of an event that is impossible to happen is 0. The probability of an event that is certain to happen is 1. Probabilities can be written visually on a probability scale, which we will be looking at as well. Now, the notation for writing the probability of an event is P on the outside of a bracket and the event on the inside. So let's say, for example, we're talking about the probability of an even number. Then we will have P, and in the bracket we will write even number. That's how we use the notation for probability. Now, describing probability. When we're describing probability, there are certain words that we can use. So probability can be described using words, and the key vocabulary includes the following words. So the first one we can talk about is certain, which we just looked at. We could also use words like very likely to happen, likely. We can talk about even chance, unlikely, and very unlikely, and finally, events that are impossible. Now, diagrammatically, this is what it looks like. The probability of a spinner landing on green is described in words. Now, on the first diagram, we can see there is absolutely no sector that is shaded green. So it is impossible to get green on this spinner. Now, on the second spinner, there are 6 parts. I was going to say 4, but 6 parts. There are 6 parts on this spinner, and only 2 out of those is green. So if we spin the spinner, it is unlikely that we are going to get the green. Then we've got 3 out of the 6 parts that are shaded here. So that means it is even chance of us getting a green on the spinner. And then we can see that 5/6 of the last spinner is shaded green. Therefore, it is very likely that when we spin that spinner, we're going to be getting a green. So words are used there. And now we're going to look at the probability scale and how we can use those words and place them on the scale. So we're asked here to match the labels to the correct place on the probability scale. So again, we know that we talked about 0 being impossible and 1 being certain. So now we're going to look at where will we put likely, unlikely, impossible, certain, and even chance. And then also we could put that in terms of 100%. So we're going to put the greens at the bottom of the scale and the purple ones at the top. So for the first one, likely likely, if it's likely to happen, it's going to be very closer to 1. So for the first one, likely will go in the second to last slot, somewhere at 75%, thereabout. Then we have unlikely. So unlikely will be closer to 0. So that's going to be somewhere nearby 25% chance of happening. Then we've got certain, and we know if it's certain, the probability has to be 1. So that goes at 1. Then we've got impossible. Impossible to happen, we know it's 0. So that one goes at 0. And then even chance, other way to say that, 50-50, that goes at 50% or 0.5. Beautiful. Now we're going to look at the green. So 100% chance is another way of saying certain. So that goes at 1. No chance of happening, impossible. So that goes at 0. Then we've got 75%. So that's, we just need to locate that on the scale, same place where we would have a likely. So that is 75%. 50% chance, again, even chance, 50-50, 0.5. And then finally, 25% chance, quarter of the way, unlikely to happen. So therefore, we place that on the scale. Importantly, when we are placing events on the scale, we need to make sure that we pay attention to the units that are on the scale, and that will help us to find out exactly where to place these events. Fantastic. So now we're going to look at some examples of using these words as well. So we're told here that Shara makes a fair spinner with 6 sectors. So the word fair means that each event or each outcome have the same likelihood of happening. So we're given the words impossible, likely, even, likely, certain, and we're asked to use a word from the box which represents or which best describes the probability of each of the following events. We pay attention to our spinner. We recognize we've got 6 sections on that spinner. So A, what is the probability, or describe the spinner will land on a 6. So I take note of my spinner, and there are no 6s on this spinner at all. Therefore, the word that describes that is going to be impossible. So we just simply write that down, impossible to happen, 1 mark. Now we need to describe the spinner will land on a 3. I observe here, I can see that 3 slots or 3 parts of my spinner is a 3. And there's 6 sections, so it's 3 out of 6, which means that is even. So here we describe it as evens, which is the same as even chance, so just put evens there, another 1 mark. The spinner will land on a 2. I can see here there is just 1 out of 6, so that means it is going to be unlikely to happen. So we write unlikely for 1 mark. And then the last one, the spinner will land on a number that's greater than 1. I check my spinner, all my numbers on the spinner is greater than 1. Therefore, it is certain that this will happen. So my answer here is certain. Absolutely brilliant. So we move along to looking at the probability scale. So a probability scale allows probabilities of events to be placed in the order of likelihood. We kind of preempted that a little bit when we talked about where to put the words on the scale. So the probabilities marked on the probability scale may be used to make statements comparing different outcomes. Now I've got a few examples and then we will wrap this up. So we're told here that George rolls an ordinary 6-sided die. We're asked to mark with a cross the probability that he gets an 8. So it's an ordinary 6-sided die. Clearly there is no number 8 at all. So we know that it's going to be impossible to happen, and we also know that impossible is 0 on my probability scale. So therefore, I'm just going to put a cross at 0 for 1 mark. Second question say, mark with a cross the probability that he gets an odd number. So if you don't know, you can label them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 are the possibilities on the die. So odd numbers are 1, 3, and 5, which is 3 out of the possible 6, which is a half. So therefore, that goes on a half. I put my cross there. Very simple. Now, very importantly, we must always make sure that we look on how our scale is sectioned. If we're talking with a denominator of 12, for example, we'll need to make sure that our scale is divided into 12 sections. So here we go. We got another example. A fair four-sided spinner is spun once. We're asked on the probability scale to mark with a letter A the probability that the spinner will land on the number 4. So a very typical example of what I just said. Now we look here, there are 4 sections on the spinner. So if our scale wasn't sectioned for us, it would have been good for us to split the scale into 4 even parts. So therefore, I can see here that for the 4, there is just 1 out of 4 sections, which is a quarter. So because my scale is already divided into 4 sections, I need to go for section 1. So here I'm asked to put the letter A. That's exactly where 1/4 would be on my scale. So let's look. 1, 2, 3, 4 quarters make 1 whole. The second part of the question says, on the probability scale, mark with a letter B the probability that the spinner will land on the number 5. So again, I can see here that I've got 2 sections out of 2 out of 4. That is the number 5. So because this is in fourths, we can now do 1, 2 pieces will represent 2 quarters. Absolutely fantastic. So as I said, depending on the sections, you would divide your scale into the number of parts. Not always the questions will give you that sectioned scale. You sometimes will have to make the sections for yourself. Absolutely brilliant. So that was just a simple introduction to probabilities. Okay guys, and in the next section, what we're going to be looking at is the sum of probabilities. So you must ensure that you stay tuned. If you haven't yet hit the all on the notification bell, you need to make sure that you do that to be notified. And guys, remember we are also on TikTok. We've got shorts as well on YouTube with our exam style questions that you can benefit from as well. And if you haven't done so yet, tell a friend, hit like on give the little thumbs up there, and I will appreciate that. Well, the YouTube algorithm will also be sharing out the videos to other potential users as well. Guys, until the next upload, thank you so much for watching.